Hey, I want to give you a quick tutorial on testing water with your Taylor test kit. We'll leave one of these for you when we're done. I will start out by saying we're going to go and do pH and chlorine at the same time, and those will be the yellow and red. All of the instructions on what to do are inside the lid here. I'm going to do it really quickly just to give you the overview, but I find it easiest to do chlorine and pH at the same time. I turn this over and I try to go elbow deep or so to get it full of water. And when you read through your instructions, it will say fill to the 9 mil mark on the small tube and to the 44 mil mark on the big tube. I find it easiest just to put my finger in both of them, knock it down to right about where it needs to be. Then all the instructions are in here, but we'll take the first two of the yellow tubes to check our total chlorine. So it says in there 5 drops of number 1. So I'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 5 drops of number 2, and this will give us our chlorine reading. If you think you're low on chlorine, watch these as they go in, and it will turn pink as it goes in, and you'll know that there is just a little bit of chlorine in there. But those are in there. We'll invert them in a minute. Then to check pH, we'll take number 4, the front one in the red capped bottles. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of those drops. Again, all these instructions are in here in the color-coded sections in the lid there. So I'll take, these are the two that we would check the most often, pH and chlorine. Take those and invert them a couple times. You see now, if you can see where we are. So if I look at that, I'd call that chlorine level, the chlorine level are the numbers on the left. It's bromine on the right, which we're not worried about. I would put it in the 3 or 4 parts per million range. You see that okay? And then on pH, it's a little bit high. That's probably almost a pH of 8. And Nez just put some acid in this one to bring that down. So when we look at our pH and we see that it's high, we want to figure out how much muriatic acid we should put in to get it down in range. And in range would be in the middle there. You want it in that 7.5, 7.6 range. The next tube is acid demand. So we'll go 1 drop at a time in here until the color of that gets to be the color we like. Let's go a little bit more. 2 drops in. And with those 2 drops, that brought us to about 7.6. So I like that. So what I would do is I'd say, well, it took me 2 drops. I would go into this booklet, get it out. And in the back, there's a chart that says decrease pH using muriatic acid, and it'll correlate. I had 2 drops that I wanted to bring it down. You take a look at the number of gallons of pool, and it'll tell you how many quarts, ounces to put in the pool. Nez has already done that one, so this one will be dropping down in no time. While we've got this guy out, the other page I keep dog-eared is in here. These are the ranges, the recommended ranges for everything. So any of these things that we're talking about, you're wondering what should it be, there's a great chart in this book that you can keep in here. It's pretty waterproof. So that's pH and chlorine. We'll go ahead and do hardness and alkalinity also, and probably even get to the pool conditioner. So then the next 2 are both going to utilize this larger tube, so I can't do it at the same time. And they're both going to say fill to the 25 mark on the big tube. So we've done that. So now we're going to alkalinity, which are the green ones. And on this one, it'll be 2 drops of the first one, 5 drops of the next one. Then we'll swirl those, and it turns green. So we are going to put drops in counting until we get a color change. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Turned pink but went back green. 6, 7. Trying to turn 8, 9. At 9, I don't know if you can see that, Nez. It's kind of muddled. It's not a bright pink. Put 1 more in. 10. And that turns a really bright pink, and I consider that a change. So that's 10 drops to change from green to pink for alkalinity. Multiply that by 10 to figure out how many parts per million of alkalinity you have, and that would be 100. And if we looked in that chart, that's right on the money. That's what we want. So the alkalinity is pretty much perfect. Now we will do the same thing. Fill up to the 25 mil mark for our calcium hardness. The next one, calcium. Hardness will be the blue lids, and it starts out with 20 drops of number 10 here. So, 20 drops, and then 5 drops of number 11. These you swirl together. In the wintertime, it's worth saying, if you're checking this, it's really hard to get this one to dissolve in the winter. You kind of have to take a bottle inside and let it warm up a little bit. So we'll start 1, 2. 10, we haven't changed yet. We're looking for it to turn blue. That's 17, 19, 21, 23, I almost lost count, but you can see it changed colors, and I was in the 25 range, something like that. So that will be, we'll call that by 10, and so you have 250 parts per million of calcium hardness, which is right in range. So with a concrete or vinyl liner pool, you'll be in that 200 to 400 range. If it's a fiberglass pool, our fiberglass vendor requests that we have the calcium down at closer to 100, so you can ignore the chart in here when it comes to the calcium for a fiberglass pool. And then the last thing we've got is how much pool conditioner, cyanuric acid, is in the pool. This one's a little bit different. It's kind of tricky, but we'll rinse this guy out a little bit and fill it to the 7 mark. And then your cyanuric acid reagent come here, and take it on up to the 14. Then we'll cap this, and this needs to be shaken for 30 seconds. So while I'm doing that, I'll say calcium hardness, you're not going to check a whole heck of a lot. Every once in a while, just to make sure. pH and chlorine, you're going to check quite a bit, at least weekly. Alkalinity is not a bad thing to check a little more frequently. And the cyanuric acid, that's what we call sunscreen for your chlorine. It'll keep the chlorine from evaporating away as it gets hot and you got tons of people in the pool. So we like to have somewhere in the 30 to 50 range on cyanuric acid. So if you start to notice the water isn't super clear and you're having a hard time keeping chlorine in the pool, then it might be worth pulling this test out and say, hey, do I need to add a little bit more conditioner to hold a little bit more chlorine in here? So probably getting it close to 30 seconds on that. Now you want to shoot down into that tube. On this test, we're not looking to change the color of something. There's a little black dot in the bottom of this tube, and we're going to squirt this in until we can no longer see that dot. And I don't know if you can see it, Nez. You can't see it, so let's see. I'm getting close there. I've covered it, and now at this point, I think we're pretty close to not being able to see that dot any longer. So you've got it down there. Yep, I cannot see it. So then if I look here, the CYA gauge is on the back here, and that puts this at between 30 and 40 to 35. It's maybe a touch slow, but that's okay. If it's holding chlorine, it's not bad. So that is the complete Taylor 2005 test kit. Hopefully that's helpful. Once you've done it a few times, it's gonna be super easy, and it's not too hard to remember how many drops of which go in. Just until you get to that point, all the instructions are right here inside the lid, and should be able to keep you safe and clean. Thank you.